In the previous video, we found, inspected, tested, and purchased a used camper van, which we decided to name it Birdie. We got it checked out by a mechanic and ordered some parts we needed for it. In this video, we're gonna go over what we need to fix with the van, we're gonna get all the items we need, and we're gonna eliminate the rust. We're also gonna be fixing some other things which are wrong with the van too. I've included timestamps on screen and in the description. First, let's address the rust. Since this is a 30-year-old camper which has had many years of use and abuse, it's no surprise that there's rust. The main things we'll need to fix the rust are sandpaper, body filler, protective wear, as well as some extra bits. First, we're going to remove the rust using sandpaper and some tools. Second, we're going to fill the empty spot where we remove the rust with body filler. Third, we're going to sand the body filler. And finally, the fourth step, we're going to paint over the body filler to make it look like the rust wasn't even there. This brings the overall cost of the van from $3,612 to $3,678. We're going to be starting at the back of the van. You can use regular sandpaper to start removing the paint, but I'm going to speed up the process by using this drill attachment, which I got for about $10. Since I have no idea what I'm doing, I thought taping the area which I'm going to be working on was a good idea. Later on, I removed the tape, so learn from my mistakes. I then go ham with some hand sanding since there's only so much that a drill attachment can do. Now that we're stripping the paint, we can really see the extent of the rust. Now we gotta hit it with the rust converter, which also acts as a primer, spraying both the outside and the inside. Now my dumbass thought that using paper would help somehow, but it didn't. While the rust converter is drying, we're gonna move on to the other areas which need attention. Now with it dry, I'm going to use some wall adhesive which will act as a wall for me to put my body filler on. When mixing body filler, don't do what I did and use the smallest surface possible to mix it on. Try to get a nice big piece of clean metal and don't use cardboard. Also, don't do what I did and eyeball how much cream hardener you need to mix with the body filler, unless you also don't care too much about how the end result will turn out. When mixing, you want to gather it up and press it down. You don't want to stir it like a cake. It'll create air bubbles, which isn't good. The final mix should look like this. Now I'm going to apply it to the body. I'm focusing on making sure all the gaps in the body are filled, so that no water can get in and create more rust. This is how it turned out. Now it's time to sand. I'm going to start off with the drill to quickly get rid of the clumpy bits. Then I'm using 60 grit sandpaper to get the body filler level with the rest of the body. I'll then use 1000 grit sandpaper to make it nice and smooth like some booty cheeks. This is the end result. Prepping for the paint, we're going to wipe some isopropyl alcohol around the areas to get rid of any dust or debris. I also made sure to repurpose my tape. Since that rust converter stuff is technically a primer, I'm going to be giving it a once over. I then picked up this black enamel paint. This adds another $8 to the total cost of the van. As you can see, you can tell that I've done this before, and I totally know how to paint. The first coat is pretty good. We're going to hit him with a second coat and possibly a third. And now for some ASMR. Right, let's move on. We're gonna replace the roof vent as the top of it is old and has cracked. We start from the inside and make our way up. I picked up a brand new one from Bernsko. This adds another 150 bucks to the total cost of the van. Now watch as I climb up onto a ladder to get it off, and it literally crumbles in my hand. You should also notice the very crumbly blue paint on the roof, which I'm not going to do anything about. Since the screws have been painted over, I had to get a flathead screwdriver to chip the paint around the screw so that I could spray some lubricant to help get the screws out easier. Once the screws were out, I used the flathead to pry open this part of the vent, which was quite hard since there's sticky stuff on the underside of this part. Finally, I got it off. And now I'm going to toss these parts in the trash. I take the new roof vent and make sure it aligns up with the cutout in the roof already, which it does. I then go to make sure the top half also aligns perfectly, which it doesn't. So I go ahead and cut these plastic bits off you see here, so it can fit in the cutout. This was very tedious as I didn't have a drill attachment which I could use to do this, so I just did it by hand. Just like that, it fits like a glove. I'm using this thing called No More Gaps, which I found in the garage and I thought it would make as a good sealant. No extra cost for the van. After getting some screws in, I add another layer of sealant for good measure. I then start work on the other three sides, making sure to get enough sealant in there to keep out the water. We now face an issue of the vent hanging over the roof like this. There's a considerable amount of space between the roof and where the screws go. I just added heaps of sealant and hope for the best. Here's the final result. Now moving on to the locks which don't work. We're going to start with the boot. This was a pretty easy process. There was one metal bit holding the lock in place. Slip that out and out comes the lock, and in goes the new one. The same thing goes for the driver's side lock. After removing the door card, there was a very tiny hole for you to stick your hand in to get the lock out. I lubed up the locking mechanism just a little bit to keep all the moving parts in working order. Lubing things up is always a good idea if you know what I'm saying. The last lock we had to do was the sliding door lock. This was probably the most important one because the door wouldn't lock at all and would literally fling open while driving. Once all the screws are out, we can get the door card out and pop out the metal rod which is a part of the door mechanism. Then we go outside to remove the screws. Here's the old part and here's the new part. After getting everything back in place, we screw it up and test it out. Perfect. No more door flying open randomly. The very last thing on our list is this mirror, which won't stay in place. We tried to get the mirror off, but one of the screws was completely stripped, so we had to maneuver the part sideways to take the mirror off. It turns out there was string on the bolt. How stupid. We took the string off, which pretty much solved all our problems. We put it back on, and it stayed in place like it was nobody's business. That sums up this video. I hope you found this entertaining and useful. Maybe you could use this video with some of your camper van ideas. I have a whole series of these van life videos coming out, so make sure to check them out if you haven't already. Liking this video will help the YouTube algorithm promote this video, and subscribing will mean you'll never have to search for me again. Doing both of these will really help out the channel grow. If you have any questions or future video ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments, as I will be checking them. I'm just Julian, and I'll see you next time.